that I read was called More Word of Mouth Referrals. And Matt does a lot with companies and businesses and individuals on sales coaching. And I've mentioned this many times that job search is a lot like sales. And so I talked to Matt about speaking to the bootcamp group about things that sales techniques that you can apply to job search. And what we're going to do is talk about some of the techniques that Matt speaks about in his books. And but before we get started, I want to let Matt introduce himself and say some pearls of wisdom for us to get us started.
Thank you so much, Christy, and shout out to Julia for that connection to get us here. Yeah, my name is Matt Ward, and for 16 years, I owned a digital marketing agency. What does that mean? We built websites, effective websites for small business owners. And I grew that agency for over 16 years, ended up with 8 employees. And I sold it in 2018 to one of my employees for 7 figures. And I met that employee in a networking group some 10 years prior. So I love to tell people that I sold a business for over $1 million to someone I met in a networking group. Now, you'd be surprised what you could get out of the relationships that you build with people. And so in June of 2018, I sold that company. I became a full-time professional speaker the next day. I started hitting the road. In 2019, I did 35 gigs all over the country. And then, 2020. That we won't even say the 5-letter word that everybody hates by now. No, it's not COVID, it's pivot. I had to pivot. And so I live on Zoom now as a professional speaker, a word of mouth referral consultant, and an author who's written a bunch of articles, a lot of blogs, and 2 books. The new one is coming out this month called The High Five Effect, How to Do Business with People Who Bring You Joy. And most of my content is around this idea of helping sales professionals and service-based business owners get more referrals. But at the end of the day, what I teach people how to do is care about other people, because that's the golden nugget. That's the secret sauce to getting more referrals. And I've done talks at HR conferences in Cleveland and in Florida for SHRM about how to recruit and retain employees through word of mouth referrals. I teach people internally in HR departments how to actually get people to work at the company that you want to have working at the company, i.e., you don't want bad employees referring more bad employees, because we refer people like us. And so we teach people to recruit and retain the high value talent and engage with them internally so that they refer more high value talent like yourselves. And so relationship building is the crux of what I do, what I teach people, how to stay in touch. And that book that Christy talked about has 45 different tips and tricks on how to stay in touch with other people. And all of those things really do apply to those people who are searching for jobs. It's really no different, right? This is a relationship-based game, because if it's not, you don't stand out. You're just another number in the pile of applications that are going into the place. And when you combine the 2 books together, you think about, now this book, it comes out later this month. This is the proof copy. That's why it's got the line on there. But How to Do Business with People Who Bring You Joy. This is about raising the level of joy internally and increasing more money, more time, and more freedom in your business. But funny enough, you folks don't want to work for a company that doesn't bring you joy. You'd rather pass that. You'd rather move on. You'd rather wait for the next offer. Because you know in this market right now that there can very well be more offers coming your way. And so it's not about being entitled, but it is about knowing what you want to go after, and then building the right relationships to get there. So hopefully today we can unpack those things for you. And this is an interactive program. So yes, while you have your cup of coffee, and my pizza's probably in the pizza oven waiting for 12 noon to hit the top of the hour, that doesn't change whether or not you're woke up enough to actually engage with us today. So I fully expect questions and conversation so that you get the value that you came here to get. I'm not speaking about concepts for people that didn't show up today so that we can give them the recording. I'm speaking about concepts for you folks so that you can take away, and I'm here to answer all of those questions as we start to unfold what they are. So I'm super happy to be here and impart some wisdom, as Christy says, in the conversation today.
Okay, so I'm going through your book, and what I did is I highlighted some things that I thought would be really relevant to kick off the conversation. And for all of you, if you want to put questions in the chat, please do. And what we'll do is call on you and have you ask your question, or I can ask it for you. So let's start with the premise. The premise is know, like, and trust. We know that in sales. And then you write, and also who they care about. Now, how do you apply that to a job seeker who doesn't know somebody?
Sure.
How do you get somebody to know, like, and trust you?
So let me unpack that first, because there's a huge difference between those two things, right? I've always believed that people do business with who they know, like, and trust until I started digging into this stuff. That's what my good friend Bob Berg wrote about in The Go-Giver, and other types of people have written about. And the problem is that know, like, and trust doesn't always get you the business per se. Now, I've got my business hat on here for a second, and I'll switch over to job seeker side here in just a second. But understand that know, like, and trust isn't enough to get you the business, because in the business world, people can refer you and never do business with you. So that ultimately, they have to care about your success. And that's a component, that caring component is an up level, one step greater than know, like, and trust. And as job seekers, if we can figure out how to tap into caring about the success of the company, because as an employer, I'm only interested, yes, I'm going to pay you for a job. I expect you to do the job. But when there are 5 of you applying, I'm picking the one that cares about my company, right? And you have to figure out how to show me that. And so there are many different ways to do that. But early on in a relationship, that's very tough, because trust has to be built along the way in order for referrals to happen. So there's 2 components here. You need to get the company to trust you when you apply and do the interview, and you need to get your colleagues to trust you so that they refer you to the other jobs that are out there and available. So there are really 2 different components that we need to talk about with that. When it comes to trust, in that interview process, you've got to be prepared. The more you know about that company, the more they're going to trust you, because you can speak about that in a valuable way. You've done the research. You know about the acquisitions that they had. You know about the layoffs they had in 2008 or 2010 because you did a Google search and found press releases. You see new products and information that were coming up. There's things like that most job seekers would never do the research on, and that is going to pull you ahead, right? That's going to develop trust. And then go ahead, Christy.
And Julia puts a question in. She said she always gets the question, why do you want to work for this company? And I think that applies to what you're talking about. Yeah. Is like, you've got to figure that out before you go in.
Yeah, you need to have that answer. So look, you shouldn't be there if you don't know the answer to that question. So always ask yourself that question up front. Why do I want to work here? Is it because of the pay? Is it because of the benefits? Or maybe it's because of the flexibility. I wrote my second book. Business owners want more money, more time, and more freedom. I believe in the freedom philosophy that I can do anything I want, when I want, where I want, and how I want. And if you work for a company that endorses that idea, then money isn't the driver. You'll take less money for flexibility, for freedom, for the ability to have internal growth and upward mobility at a company, right? And so you need to figure that out. And Google is going to be your best friend for that if you don't already have a contact at the company. But, and let me be clear, if you still don't know the answers after Googling it, when you go to the interview, ask. because that shows me as the hiring manager that you truly care. You know what you want. And don't be afraid to say, you know what, Matt, I appreciate you answering that. And here's the thing. The money isn't the most important thing. I understand you're going to give me some great salary and some amazing benefits, but freedom to travel is the most important thing for me. And that's not something you mentioned. So could we talk about that briefly? And if the answer's still a no on that, then just hardline that. Be polite, be professional, and tell them it's not a good fit. Do you know how much respect and trust you gain when you're super honest like that? And you know how difficult it is for an employer to make a decision on people, and you just self-select out? That makes it way easier for us, right? The other thing is employers don't want to chase people and try to sell you on a job, right? Just the same, you shouldn't be trying to sell the employer on the job. You should be internally committed to that job, because hopefully it's not just a job, right? When it comes to caring, there are ways that you can tap into your emotion to show that, right? It's the things you say, the conversation pieces, the questions you ask.
Yeah, I told him, I said, I can make it. I said, he's like, and you're telling me these for 52,000.
I agree, Martha. Martha, can you mute yourself? Thank you. I would go with the 52,000 for sure. I have no idea what that's for, but yeah, let's ask some good questions. All right. So did that answer your question? I mean, Julia's point wasn't really a question. She just said, make sure you know that going in. Yeah. And trust is a hard thing to build, right? Trust is created over time. And so if you don't have that time frame, you have to shorten that by using tactics and mannerisms that will create more trust. And the research is a huge part of that. Not enough of us do that for anything in our lives, right? We don't do enough research on people, for sure.
Okay, so to that point, when and this is one of the things that I continue to hear over and over again. Somebody goes in for an interview and then they're waiting for a response, they're waiting for a follow-up. It's like, what are the things that can be done? You have a lot of great suggestions in your book for following up with clients, but how can we take some of those principles and apply it to the job search? And you have a whole section on the care package, and I feel like some of those things can be easily done for job seekers, like once you interview with somebody or once you meet somebody. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So Care Package Unpacked is a 4-pillar system that helps you get more referrals. Basically, it helps you build better relationships and care more about people. And real quick, those 4 things are over delivery, listening, surprise, and non-self-serving acts. Now, funny enough, you didn't hear me say anything about the word sales in there. It's over delivery, listening, surprise, and non-self-serving acts. So let's take over delivery for example. Well, first, let me step it back. When you're in the interview, make sure you get all the contact information of the person you're talking to. Now, they're not always the hiring manager or whatever, but get all the contact information. That could be on a business card, but usually your heart's racing when you're there for the interview. So just make sure you have phone number, cell phone number, address. If you're meeting in person, great. If you're meeting on Zoom, you want to ask them for their current keyword, their current mailing address. Since the pandemic, we have figured out how to get our mail. So they will give you an address and it will get to them, which brings me to the over delivery. Many people will follow up on an interview with an email. Effective today, none of you will ever do that again. You will all send a handwritten thank you card. No exception.
Okay, so tell us why.
Because when you go from the inbox to the mailbox, you stand out. It's that simple. That's why I own the domain, from the inbox to the mailbox, right? You stand out. Like, think about it. You go get mail right now and there's a card in there. What's the first thing you do? You hold the bills in one hand and you open the card before you're back in the house. How many other job seekers, people on the interview, are actually sending handwritten thank you cards? 0. So the way you prepare in advance is, if you have the address in advance, you pre-address the card before the meeting. You then write the card after the meeting and you drop it in the mailbox on your way home. And if it's Zoom, you just do it right away and make sure it gets in the mailbox that day or the next day. So that's over delivery. That is doing something more than they expect. Okay. Second thing is listening. Listening. When you listen not just with your ears, but also with your eyes. So pay attention to the surroundings. If you haven't figured it out, I got a volleyball.
Here's a question. What about an email and a physical card?
So I go physical card first. I mean, I'm fine with the email and the physical card, as long as the card is involved in the mix. The email can be an immediate thing, and then there's a secondary lapse with the mail time that's going to hit with the card, and that's going to really enforce the follow-up on that. But the card has to be there. The handwritten card has to be there, right? Listening with your eyes and your ears. You got to pay attention with your eyes. Sometimes they're wearing clothing and apparel that's like their college. Look at their LinkedIn profile. Their college is there. What are they sharing? Are they sharing anything? Are they involved in any alumni groups? That's not necessarily anything you'll act on per se, but at least it's knowledge for you. And it's paying attention. When I teach it in the sales world, I teach people to always connect on Facebook. I even taught this in the HR sessions I did. Always connect on Facebook with everybody you meet. I know it's a little weird. Well, shouldn't I keep personal and business separate? I don't know. I would say no. I think business is personal. You're not doing business with Amazon here. You're doing business with Matt Ward, right? You're doing business with the person you're talking to. Now, in a job seeker scenario, it's going to be a lot harder to connect on Facebook. I get that. But if they're open to it, then do it. Hey, you open to connecting on Facebook? No, we should keep it separate. Okay, cool. No worries.
Matt, another question. With everyone working remotely, how do we ensure the handwritten card gets to the person?
That's the thing. That's not a problem. We had a problem with that in April of 2020, when no one knew how to get mail to people who work at home. Since then, we have resolved that problem from corporate office to employee. And moreover, when you ask the question, what is your current mailing address? They will give you the place that they receive mail. And if you have an address on a business card, you can just say, is this your current mailing address? Or did something change with the pandemic? Like, guys, this is not a full-on, like, this is not a deposition, right? This does not have to feel like a deposition. And it should not feel like that. This should be casual conversation that just happenstance happen. Look, if we were standing at a networking event and you just randomly said to me, hey Matt, how's business? That doesn't feel like an inquisition. So don't make asking for the address an inquisition either. You'll know when it's right to ask for it, and you'll know when it's not right to ask for it. It's not right to ask for it when you walk into the interview and I say, hey, Christy, thanks so much for meeting me. I sit down. I go, by the way, can I get your address? That's creepy. That's weird, right? So yes. You got to feel this thing out. There's an energy here. There's a gut feeling. You got to listen to your gut and all of these things, right? And so that's how you do that, right? So that's over delivery and listening. Surprise. I define a surprise as an unexpected gift at an unexpected time. What can you give the person that you met with? Well, if you paid attention to things, if you knew that I loved pizza and bacon, and you knew that my address was on my website, you could all ship me bacon after today and I would have it by Monday. Sound good? Yes, just nod. Okay, great. Now you have a task to do. That's my payment for today, bacon in the mail. But you get my point, right? I'm easily accessible, and you heard me say I like bacon. But if you didn't hear me say that, You could maybe see my bookshelf. Oh, I got a couple bobbleheads there, some books, and oh, he must like business books. Let me find the best business book I've ever read and ship him a copy of that. And who cares if I've read it? Because that's not what matters. What matters was the thought that counts, right? So surprise is a great way to catch somebody off guard and really impress. Hey, thank you so much for your time for this interview. By the way, I believe in this company so much. I care about the success of this company. I don't know if you've ever read this book, but this book has been amazing to me. It's Keith Ferrazzi's Never Eat Alone, this orange one, and it teaches people how to give without the expectation of getting anything in return. It's an amazing book. I hope you'll read it. It changed my life. Easy peasy, right? If you want to give somebody coffee, that's in the book, in the More book, right? You give somebody coffee, know their coffee. Like, I'm not in Seattle. What's that mean? Somebody, quick hand. What's that mean if I'm not in Seattle? Liz raised her hand.
It means you'd like Dunkin', please.
Thank you very much. Hello.
I am in Seattle.
I spend $500 a month on Dunkin' Donuts. It's ridiculous. It's an obsession. But when people gift me Starbucks, I'm like, A, there's no Starbucks here, barely. I have to drive like 10 miles to get to a Starbucks. And B, there's a Dunkin' Donuts in every gas station in New England. Like, that stuff pours in my veins in the hospital when you go get your flu shot, right? So understanding that makes sense, right? And just knowing people and listening, that's a great surprise gift. If you did a Zoom, by the way, if you did a Zoom, you don't have an email. I mean, you don't have a physical address, but you have an email. You can thank them with a $5 virtual gift card to Starbucks or Dunkin' or something like that. Thank them for their time. Doesn't cost you a lot of money, right? Little things like that. So that's surprise. The card is a surprise, by the way, because they're not expecting it. And the final thing is non-self-serving acts. So what are things that you do for other people that have no bearing or benefit to you? Now, in the job seeking world, it's probably going to apply more when you're helping your colleagues get a job and you're sharing press releases about jobs that or companies that they might be looking at, and you're sharing that with them. But if you shared a press release with a company you interviewed at, that's a non-self-serving act. Hey, I saw this. I'm not sure if you saw it. I thought it might be a benefit. There's a service called HARO, Help a Reporter Out, HARO. It's free. They send you 3 emails a day. It's incessant. But these are people who are writing articles. They're journalists in some regards. Sometimes they're podcasters, but they're journalists and they need stories. And so they're looking for experts to quote. You go interview at a company, and next thing you know, you see something pop up in HARO. Say you're interviewing for a cannabis company. There's a whole bunch of stuff about cannabis industry in HARO these days because it's all the rage. You take a couple of those and you send them over to your contact and say, hey, I saw these. They're looking for people to quote. I thought maybe somebody from you or the company could reach out and get some free press. Then you look like the hero. That's how you stand out.
That's a really good idea. And
that, Christy, was worth the price of admission today.
Yes, I agree. Okay, and then talk about the non-self-serving act.
So that's really what that is, right? Is so when you're helping someone where it has no bearing or benefit to you. So that HARO thing doesn't have a bearing or benefit to you. When you help a colleague on these calls and you run into a job search and it's not a good fit for you and you opt out of that and then you send it over to Thomas or Richard or Liz, that has no bearing or benefit for you, right? You're collecting cards from different locations you go to where you realize it's not a good fit, and then you hand them out at the next job seekers networking event. Hey, these people are hiring. It wasn't a good fit for me. That's a non-self-serving act. Yeah.
What about the thank you note? And so when you send a thank you note, somebody said one time that I heard, and I wasn't really sure about this, is don't put any indication of why you would want to have them reply to you.
Yeah, there's no reply necessary. So first thing, I tell all my salespeople, especially the people I coach, if you take your business card and put it in the handwritten card, I'm firing you as a client because you haven't heard my message. The minute you put your contact information inside a handwritten card, it becomes about you and not about them. The goal here is to make it about them. And so there is no need for a reach back out. I had a client tell me the other day, he does video services. And we talk about these things called reach outs, which is where you just reach out and you check in. Hey, how are you? Hey, Christy, how are you doing? I hope you're well. End of email. Full stop. He used to say, hey, Christy, how are you? I hope you're doing well. You know, we did some business a long time ago and you talked about doing some more videos. Did you want to have a chat? No, no, bad. That's all sales and no one wants that. So just checking in. Now, in your case, it's like, hey, just checking in. Did you happen to fill that position? I just wanted to be professionally responsible for following up.
Okay, so someone in the comment, Kipley said, I've used Haro before and ended up with the job offer. Kipley, can you share more about that?
Well, yeah, there's a downside to the story too. But I was interviewing with a tech company in San Jose a couple of years ago, and I went through a round of interviews, and then I had to show them some of my work, my writing samples. It was a communications VP job, as I recall. And then I had to write a custom piece where I had limited information on their, secret technology, but I had looked up some stuff on Haro because they wanted me to write a pitch. Also, how I would do a sample pitch. And as I was on the email for Haro, something came up. So I sent that off to the hiring manager and said, hey, when I was doing my research for my pitch article for you all, this came up on Haro. I think it's right, up your alley. You may want to have somebody jump on this. I did get the offer, and then it got rescinded a couple of weeks later because one of the guys in the round of 7 interviews didn't like my answers on the commercial real estate front. But I think that was a freakish thing with the dynamic of some power play there. But I did originally get the offer.
So it didn't have anything to do with Haro, right?
No, it had nothing to do with Haro. It was yes, it was Haro. I sent that as a follow-up. So he didn't say we hired you because of Haro. I think it was just an example of that. I went the extra step while I was doing what they asked me to write a pitch piece. I found there was something that a real reporter was actually wanting help.
And just think about that from your perspective, folks, as a hiring manager talking to Kipley about the job. What does that show you? Like emotionally, what does that show you about your prospective employee? It's powerful, right? It's like, and these things are small little things, and they make the biggest deal because I can guarantee you nobody else did any such thing with that, like that.
Yeah, and I got the idea just to give credit. He's passed away, but there was a gentleman that was a family friend that was an attorney with a big law firm, and you could hear him up at night. I lived with him for a little bit on his typewriter, and this is what I like to do with people, because it's weird when you're interviewing for me for gifts because of HR rules. I worked for a labor and employment firm for years, so I'm hypersensitive. But he wrote notes with articles from newspapers every night for an hour and every morning. And I'll send out, hey, you're fighting Illini or looking great for the basketball season. I thought about you. Or I know that your daughter's interested in the violin. Here's this kind of thing. And he built a law firm from scratch all the way to multi-million. And that was his tactic. And that has worked for me on the networking and job search front. And it's worked for me to get back in touch with former colleagues that I've sort of gotten out of contact with, particularly if it's sports or school or kid related, if you knew something about their kid.
Here's something to pick up that she mentioned that I didn't even throw out there yet, but I mentioned this before on other talks, is that, and you're going to want to write this down, even though we're recording this, you're going to write this down and somebody should put it in the chat so that when you save the chat, it's there. One of the most powerful statements you can ever make in this entire process is, I thought about you. I thought about you. Because too often we go through an entire week where no one thought about us. or at least they didn't tell us. And doesn't that feel good when someone tells you that, right? So keep that in mind as you're doing this relationship building, trust building process, that thinking about someone, you know, it matters to them. And the goal of this entire process is to make sure that other people know that they matter to us. That's the key.
I like that, Matt. I think that those are some really great pearls. And let's talk about the thank you note. And in your book, you share an example of the thank you note. I appreciate, hi, John, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to meet with me. Enjoyed learning more about your passion and your business core values, blah, blah, blah. And then, but here's how you ended it, which I thought was really kind of key here. Looking forward to getting together soon, or, speaking again soon. So as a job seeker, the question is always, how do you end it? And you talk about being non-self-serving. And if you say, I look forward to exploring, the job further, that makes it more self-serving.
Yeah, it's a sales pitch, right? So what I like to do is sort of the formula is introduction, callback, ending of the, and then the end, right? The sign off. The sign off piece, the callback gets a lot of talk because everybody's like, what do I put in the card? What do I put in the card? And I just want you to put what you feel like you should put. But I also want you to put on the sign off what you feel like you should put. And if you feel like you're selling when you're writing it, you shouldn't put it. So from a job searching perspective, you could say, I hope to hear from you soon. That doesn't say I hope to get the job, although it might imply that, but it's way less salesy. Looking forward to our next chat. Wait, there's a next chat? There's a next chat? Wait, we didn't set up another chat. No, yeah, we did. I just said it in the card.
See, and that's what I like, Matt. I think that if you end the card with, I look forward to our next conversation, then it's like it's forward looking. And if you think about, kind of the neuro-linguistic part of it, then
it's committing them to the relationship, Christy.
Yeah, exactly. I like how you put that.
Yeah. It's like, hey, looking forward to our next conversation. Wait, I didn't schedule anything. Oh, wait, I guess I better schedule something. Oh, wait, they're expecting more from this relationship. It's an implied relationship that you're putting out there. And at the end of the day, it doesn't mean it's about the job. Maybe it could be about more research you did, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're going after the job that brings you joy and it's not about the money, you'll wait. You'll wait for the right job. You'll wait for the right fit and you'll know it. And then you'll trust your gut. In this book, I talk a lot about gut trusting because what happens is businesses bring on clients that they should not bring on because they need the money. Those of you who are business development people and sales professionals looking for that sales job, you know what this is like. You have numbers, you have to perform. And it's painful to look at a client and say, yeah, you're not a good fit. But the problem is those bad clients become a greater problem in the future because they occupy your head as a business owner. And guess what? The bad job does the same friggin' thing. Don't take the job for the money. They took the client for the money and they regretted it. 50 small business owners I interviewed. They took the client for the money and they regretted it. Some of you have taken a job for the money in the past and it didn't work out. I did that. And I made it through 3 rounds of layoffs. And the best thing they ever did was lay me off I made it through 2 rounds of layoffs and they laid me off in the 3rd. I was like, yeah, boy, that's where I turned my business full time. 2002. Got laid off Labor Day. Hey, thanks, Matt. Took the job for the money.
Okay, there's another tip in the book, and you suggest read Jason Gagnard's book, Mastermind Dinners.
Mhm.
How could that apply? Because
So Mastermind Dinners are Jason Gagnard, I think that's how you say his last name, wrote this book called Mastermind Dinners. This is process he did of creating these dinners with a bunch of business owners who would sit at certain seats around the table, and he would invite the people to sit at the seat and then pair the people up. So put some job seekers together. Doesn't have to just be a networking group. You could have a dinner, right? You can invite some people who are already employed. And it's not, by the way, they're not coming there in his book. They're not coming there at all to do business. But what happens is because he puts on these amazing dinner parties, people come and they want to come. They will pay to come. They're a big deal. They're about relationship building. Entertain. Use the gifts that you already have and entertain others and start building relationships and start helping others build relationships, because when you become the connector, everybody knows you as the connector. And then guess what happens? They call you to get connected to other people they know. That's what happened to me. That's how I got 40 under 40 for the Business Journal. That's how I got Chamber Small Business Owner of the Year. People just knew me as the guy that knew everyone. And so you can be that person even if you don't have a job. You can just start entertaining, putting people together. You invite 4 or 5 people to a coffee house. It's just, hey, we're just going to chat and learn about each other. That's how you level it up as a job seeker. It doesn't have to be an organized job seekers group per se, right? Remember, those that succeed are the ones that take it by the horns, take the bull by the horns, right? So you guys are here, you're doing something, you're on this call, and then what's the action you take next? You know, how do you find 2 or 3 people just to meet for coffee? How do you show up to a local business networking group? They might be small businesses, but small businesses know big businesses. So go to a BNI, go to an AmSpirit, go to a network in action group as a guest. Many times you don't have to pay. You just show up. Just say, hey, I'm looking for a job. I can't tell you how many times through networking groups I've been there and somebody who doesn't work for a company has shown up and said, I'm just here. I'm trying to build some relationships and network with people. I'm looking for my next opportunity. And maybe somebody in the group is hiring and maybe they're not, but they certainly have clients who are hiring, right? There's HR people in the room. As a web designer, I was working with all types of other business owners. I always knew when they were hiring. Why? They sent us the job posting to put on the website. So you never know who knows somebody. And as I always say, you never know where your next referral is going to come from. So think about that from a job perspective. And that's how you use the Mastermind Dinner idea.
And then let's talk about the blogging part. You mentioned this, and I thought about an interesting way that a job seeker could use it. So during the conversation, the interview, and assume it's a virtual interview, right? And then you got a little bit of information from the interviewer, and then you talk about a blog post or a mention on LinkedIn, et cetera. How could you weave that in?
Yeah, so I would avoid the blog post per se, but take the same idea and write an article on LinkedIn and then tag the company and tag the interviewer. Because now you're up leveling. Nobody's doing that. And so then you write about your experience. I really enjoyed my experience today with XYZ warehouse management company. You know, I met with Tony and he was so polite and so nice. And he took time out of his day to meet with me. And I really love the types of things that they're doing. I learned some new things that they're doing. You know, their website talks about this. Here's the website. Check it out. You're spreading the word on that company. And then 2 days later, go to their Facebook page and share a couple posts out because they'll get notified of that too. Right. So that's a way you can continue to stay in line with these people and make sure that you're continued to, you know, to have those mentions, those top of mind awareness when it comes to the job search that they're looking to fill.
Yeah.
I know many of you don't have blogs, but you all have LinkedIn accounts. So And you don't have to do an article. You could just do a post.
And I think that that's a great idea, because if you mention something about the company on LinkedIn or about the person on LinkedIn, they hear about it.
Yeah, notifications will tell them.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like that's something that, you know, I mean, it's heartwarming, right? Somebody mentions you, as long as it's not cheesy, and you just go, wow, that person really thought about me. Okay. Now there's so many other things that we could talk about, but Matchmaker, play Matchmaker. And so talk a little bit more about that and the job seeker.
Yeah. So this is about that connector part I just mentioned, but Matchmaker is probably an even deeper level, which is I go into the job, Christy interviews me. I'm starting to realize 2/3 of the way through, it's not a good fit. Maybe they don't have the right core values I'm looking for, and I missed that pre-interview. Maybe the money they talked about pre-interview was a lot higher than current in the interview moment. So I'm just going to professionally say, hey, Chrissy, you know, I love the stuff you're talking about here, and this is a fantastic company to work at. I'm not so sure this is the right fit for me. And there's a couple of reasons why, but I just think, you know, my gut is telling me it's probably not the right fit. Absolutely love the fact that you took some time to be with me today and help me get clarity on this. I will tell you this though. My friend Sarah is looking for a very, very similar job. And I think in talking to her over the past few months, the coffee sessions we've had with the 4 or 5 of us, Mastermind Dinners, it sounds like this would be perfect. Would I be able to put her in touch with you to see if this might be a good fit from your side as well? Would that work? And they're, you know, yes or no, but you're playing Matchmaker now.
And I like that. There was an executive once who shared with me what she did. She would talk to somebody, and she would say during the interview, if she got a sense that it wasn't a fit or that they didn't want her, even if they didn't want her, but she wanted them, what she said was, well, and if I'm not a fit, I have people in my network that, you know, I would love to put in contact with your company. And so it diffused the situation. It made her not look desperate, but it also made it worth their time to continue talking with her. And I like that idea of being a matchmaker. Or when you're talking, you know, kind of during a phone screen, say, well, if I'm not a fit for the role, I probably know somebody who is.
Absolutely.
That seems like a
you just have to, this goes back, I was going to say it on the last question we talked about, but it just goes back to being as authentic and transparent as you can, as you feel comfortable. Because that, by the way, one of the best things I ever did in my web business was tell a photographer we were not the right fit for him. And he referred 4 or 5 people. I told a Little League coach we were not the right company for them. Here, try E-Teams. Back then, that was the big thing. And they saved thousands of dollars, and they referred. By the way, that guy's client is that guy's wife is a direct client of mine now, because they reached out last year when she over dinner said, I'm thinking about hiring a business coach. What do you know about that, Steve? And Steve's like, I don't know anything about that. Why don't you call Matt Ward? So she called me, and I talked to her on my way to Florida, and she's like, yeah, totally. Like, I'm hiring you immediately type of thing. And so, like, some of the best things you do is turn down what you think is not the right fit. And people trust that, and just do it authentically. People respect that so much more.
Okay. Now, one of the things that you talk about in your book is using names, using the person's name.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So first off, the number one pleasing sound in the English language is the sound of one's own first name, right, Sarah? So if you haven't picked up on it already, I've been using your names throughout the entire time I've been on this call. I haven't obviously used everybody's name, but hopefully there's more than one Sarah on here because they can all think I'm talking to Sarah, right? But I was calling out Tony's name earlier, right? We talked about people. Oh, the screen is moving around now, but very first name I mentioned on the call was Julia, right? Because that's how I got here. And so, yeah, I've been, you want to use people's first names all the time. That's why when you write the card, you don't just say, hey, thanks for meeting with me. You say, hi, Bob. I appreciated you taking the time to meet with me. Yes, Alan, I have said Christy many times today. That's right. And
Okay.
part of that is because it's a trigger to let her know that I'm done with my answer because I'm a professional speaker and I've been trained in that way. But also I used her in examples. Like earlier, I was talking about the role playing thing and I was like, okay, Christy, we doing this. And so yeah, it's super key to do that. And I mean, it also gets people's attention. There's nothing worse than talking to somebody, but them not knowing you were talking to them. That happens all the time in my house, by the way.
And we're running out of time, but I want to, there's one other thing. You mentioned, let it be known that not everyone you want to establish a relationship with is interested in that. So how do you know when to just call it quits?
Tough question. Gut, intuition, instinct. I don't know that. I like to believe you constantly are following up, right? And it could be a week after, it could be a month after, it could be 6 months after, it could be 9 months. With the advent of LinkedIn, you can constantly just send a message every now and then to just touch base. I call them touch points. There's no harm in touching base with somebody. We have to define the level of relationship we're looking for, right? In a business partner relationship, when I'm selling something like websites and I'm getting most of my referrals from IT professionals, I want a very strong relationship there. I want to go out to dinner. I want to go to baseball games. I want to go to breakfast. I want to go to every chamber event with them. I want to invite them to everything I can do. However, that isn't always the case in what you guys are doing. So you have to gauge the level by which you want that relationship and just go to that level. And sometimes that might just be touching base every 3 to 6 months on LinkedIn through a message that says, hey, hope you're doing well. How's the company doing? Right? You don't always have to send a card to do that or an email to do that. You can use LinkedIn messaging to do that. You'd be surprised, by the way, if you ask for a meeting, how quickly you might actually get one when you do it through LinkedIn Messenger. Because when I left the agency, I sent 50 messages out and I had 44 meetings the next week. And all I said was, I made some big changes in my business. I'd love to share them with you and love to hear what you're up to. That's it. 44 meetings the next week.
I think that's good. It's short and sweet, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So many times people send, emails or LinkedIn messages and they, kind of make it a bigger deal. All right. So now let's have questions. If anybody has a question, I don't see anything in the chat, but go ahead and ask it. All right. Any other pearls of wisdom that you would like to impart on us, Matt?
So,
here's
go ahead, Bill.
What is Wilson doing on your bookshelf?
That, my friend, is a tactic, a tool to get you to listen with your eyes. And I love waiting for people. So many times I do a Zoom call and people are like, before I get in, they're like, oh my God, you have Wilson. I'm like, yeah, I have Wilson. And you too can own a Wilson. Pre-painted on Amazon. All you got to do is spend $16. But I bought it just so I could put it there, just so people would look in my background and have a conversation point to show in sales that this is not a sales conversation every single time we get on a call. This is a relationship. And I want people to talk about that. I want them to talk about the idea of Tom Hanks. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? By the way, many, many moons ago, I worked for FedEx at Dulles Airport in Virginia, right? So like I have stories about FedEx, which is the tie-in to Castaway. But and by the way, I bought the ball because somebody else had a ball in their background. I was like, that's cool. I'm going to buy one. So that's why I do it. Yeah.
Okay. We have one question in the chat and then we're going to have to say goodbye. But Liz asks, if you feel like you're being ghosted, what do you do to test if it's permanent/fatal or not?
Well, I don't ever believe anything is permanent or fatal. It's all on you to continue that follow-up. So I would test it through the LinkedIn Messenger, send a message and say, hey, how are you? Do you have some time next week just to jump on a brief 10-minute call? Sometimes you're going to respond. Sometimes they also might not be a heavy LinkedIn user, so you might miss that. Emails can go to spam boxes. There's a lot of different ways to go. So yeah, so that's what I would do. I would just keep pressing. Here's 2 links. I mentioned my books a couple times. The first one is to the More book if you're interested in that. That's on Amazon. The high5effect.com. The hardcover is on presale on my website. It launches on October 26th. As I always end every presentation, every video I do on YouTube, and every time I'm in a networking event, don't forget to live happy, smile a lot, and high five everyone around you. I hope you guys
Thank you, Matt.
some
I
value.
really appreciate you coming to spend time with us and wishing you much success on your new book. And we hope we have you again. Will you come back?
Absolutely. And next time, I think it's going to have to be in person. You have to fly me out.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the weekend. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
thank
everybody.
you.
Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you, Matt. Chris,
Bye, guys.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you,
everybody.
Matt. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Christy.
This was amazing. Thank you so much.
Good.
Thank